trail of water. Quote, the man reportedly pointed a handgun at the juveniles and made verbal threats, stating he would shoot them. Several juveniles on the water at the time confirmed that the suspect aimed the weapon in their direction while yelling threats. New Smyrna Beach police wrote on a Facebook post. A witness told WSBN News that he saw Evanson yell threats at the kids. Quote, he was threatening them all. Quote, come over here to boat ramp, come park your boat, and I'll kill all y'all, end quote, said Kevin Bukins. Kevin said Evanson offered him whiskey right after yelling to the kids. Quote, that might be why you're in an argument with these other people in the boat, because you sound like you've had too much to drink already, end quote, is what I told him, he said. A police report also said one teen took cell phone video footage of the encounter, which reportedly showed Evanson reach into his pocket and grab a silver and black item that resembled the shape of a semi-automatic handgun. According to WESH, the victim told police that he pointed a gun and waved it at us, and that he said he would shoot them and watch them bleed out, end quote. Put up the picture here. So police later caught up with Evanson at his home. The 43-year-old admitted to yelling at the kids and acting, quote, stupid, but he denied ever having a gun with him. He later confessed that he lied about the weapon possession, so he did have a gun with him. He was booked in the county jail and later released after posting a $25,000 bond. Let's go back to the original charges. So let's go to the picture again of his mugshot. Okay, here's what's interesting. It seems on face value that the charges may fit, but they don't. He should be charged with much more severe penalties. Number one, he decided to do this against a group of minors. That alone becomes an enhancer to a minimal charge. He still gets the minimum for some reason. In addition to that, he did not simply brandish the weapon, meaning inappropriate exhibition of a dangerous weapon. He also decided to make an exacting threat and had the ability to carry out exacting threat. Well, what does that make it? Well, that makes it felony terroristic threats at this point. You have the means to carry out said threat, and you say the threat directly, and you have specified who the threat is against. So typically, that would be a chargeable offense as well. These are my opinions here, just going down the statutory rules of Florida and what this man actually did. But for whatever reason, he was able to bypass those charges and receive the charge of exhibition of a dangerous weapon. And, well, we shall see if the enhancer, given the fact that these are minors, becomes part of the DA's indictment against them. So I bring this up because Florida is one of those states where you can just, carry your gun. It's illegal, by the way, for a cop to ask you, do you have a permit for said firearm that you are openly carrying? So that's illegal, okay? So they walk around strapped. And the governor will say, Governor Ron DeSantis, he will tell you that, well, it's open carry because it's a constitutional right to bear arms. And there's no prerequisite requirement, no licensing, etc., because it is a right. And then you will ask a conservative like him, do you have a right to vote? Well, if you have a right to vote, why do you need a prerequisite ID? Why do you require the presentation of ID to vote, but you have disallowed the presentation of ID for your right to bear arms? You see, it's a game that they play.
The things that make you you, your memories, interests, and connections.
All right, dear brother, thoughts here.
Several things, and really happy to be with you, Dr. Ritchie, and on the show. So thank you all for so much for having me. Um, One thing I just want to say is I wonder how many people realize how rare it is when all around the world to have these sorts of gun issues or these gun incidents.
Right.
Almost nowhere I have ever been around the planet. I've been in about 70 countries, so I've really lived a very blessed and privileged life. But almost nowhere I've been around the planet, including places that are taken over by right wing, authoritarian, militaristic governments, have I seen, just guns gone wild, more guns than citizens. Not just any gun, right? Assault weapons. So this is really like Bizarroville for the vast majority of people around the planet. And I'm not talking about political identities or categories or partisanship. I'm just talking about everyday people that I meet all over the world. So that's like one. I just want everybody to realize that we are living in a very weird situation, a zombie situation. America is the exception, not the rule, with this sort of mass permitting of weapons that it takes little to no permitting in some cases, where you can have a Rambo style weapon and you can use it. And so the costs are borne by those who are affected by those weapons. So, people like to say guns don't kill people. People kill people. But I think we can also say an assault weapon is completely different than a hunting rifle, right?
Right.
So these are major distinctions. So that's like one thing I want to say. And then the other, quick thought is many of us in this country since COVID have gotten into, and I'll just include myself into it, certain altercations with other people. I mean, sometimes I think it's just a lot of us are very rattled and don't know what to trust, don't know who to trust, don't know how to have disagreements, don't know how to engage in dialogue. So much so that it's reached the point where someone would rather reach for their gun and threaten a bunch of kids than actually try to reason with them or just like get away from them if you're irritated by them. So I think it's reached a point where we're not able to really have dialogue or have unpleasant experiences with one another. And I think a lot of that is post COVID and a lot of it is social media. So there's just a couple initial thoughts. Okay.
Yeah, and a whole lot of it also are the people who used to be the standard bearers for morality or at least civility in how we spoke to each other by way of disagreement, diplomatic disagreement, etc. Those individuals have abandoned the notion of agreeing to disagree and created an example once again that many follow.
I mean, look at the elephant in the room doing, Dr. Ritchie. Like, we see a president who's asking military generals to train their armies on us.
Right.
I live in Los Angeles. You're in Atlanta. I've spent a lot of time in Chicago, Portland, and Washington D.C. I'm telling you, I have friends in all of those places. There's no active war zone going on there. There's no active riot zone going on there. People will feel impelled to try to protect their neighbors and other people who are being unjustly kidnapped by a secret police and ICE, right? So the battle has been brought home by the administration, which gives people, not just kind of Proud Boys and other kind of crazy Zionists, etc. It doesn't give them, the license to do this thing. It's not just them. It's almost anybody that feels like I'm just going to beat down the enemy from within. This is literally language that our president uses, and this is a direct reference to Birth of a Nation. The great and terrifying, great in a horrible way, D.W. Griffith.
How are people 50 and older showing up these days?
Meeting the community.
our economy and denying disaster aid to California families. Now he's attempting an unprecedented power grab to steal congressional seats and rig the 2026 election. But we can stop him. Prop 50, the Election Rigging Response Act, thwarts Trump's scheme. Prop 50 levels the playing field in the midterms and gives voters the power to check Trump. Defend democracy in all 50 states. Yes on 50.
The all-new Whoop is here. Now more advanced than ever. Train smarter, sleep deeper, recover faster. Extend your healthy years. Understand your
Republicans and the government shutdown, remember, they've also stopped paying members of the military. They have stopped paying essential services that are essential for us. May not be for them. And it is their fault. They are in charge, as Marjorie Taylor Greene would say, one of their colleagues. Now, Mike Johnson, who's, speaker, got torched by a military wife for unpaid military families. Now here it is.
Tonight, growing anxiety among American military families. People lining up for hours outside the food pantry near Fort Hood, Texas. Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson confronted on live television by a woman who says she's a military spouse from Virginia.
I have two medically fragile children. I have a husband who actively serves this country.
She told Johnson she is outraged that he won't bring the House back into session to pass emergency funding to pay the troops.
As a Republican, I'm very disappointed in my party, and I'm very disappointed in you because you do have the power to call the House back. You did that, or you refused to do that just for a show. I'm begging you to pass this legislation. My kids could die. You could stop this, and you could be the one that could say military is getting paid. And I think that it is awful, and the audacity of someone who makes six figures a year to do this to military families is insane.
But Johnson blaming the Democrats.
Chuck Schumer and the Democrats are preventing your family from getting the care they need, not Republicans, and my heart goes out to you.
Lies. Complete fabrications. Now remember, that fella is I can't say that word. That fella is a coward. He is a spineless individual. Doesn't care about you. It's not because he's Republican. There happen to be Republicans who do care. It's because he is no leader. He never has been, and he never will be. He was never there to represent you. Wake up to it. When people tell you who they are, believe them and move forward. He's there to serve his agenda. Proximity to power. Proximity to power. What is he doing? He's doing the power play due to the man who's in charge of the White House. So while you're talking to him, you're not talking to him. He's gone. You're talking to his control matrix. And that's Donald damn Trump, his Lord and Savior. So understand what's happening here. You have individuals following Trump in an occultic way, while at the same time trying to convince you that somehow the party that's not in control, the party that doesn't have a president in the White House, the party that does not control the purse strings nor the agenda is somehow to blame. It's a damn shame. Now, Scarborough, a Republican, called out these lies. Here it is.
And a guy who says that he's going to rule by the Bible, it's really surprising. He lies so effortlessly. He leaves two things out. One, the Democrats actually, as he was fact-checked in real time, Democrats have a plan to make sure the military is paid, to make sure that that woman gets the help and the support, and those children get the help and support that they need. And Republicans are blocking it. Don't believe me? Ask Elise Stefanik, who is also putting a bill on the floor to stop Mike Johnson from blocking payments to the military.
This is a
To
Republican.
stop the Republican Senate from blocking payments to the military. Mike Johnson could pick up the phone right now, call Elise Stefanik, say, hey, Elise, we're going to vote. I'm going to call everybody back in, and we're going to vote on your bill today. And it would pass.
Bad policy creates death. We talked about that. Good policy creates life. Their number one agenda is to pass policy dynamics that help you. Military families are being affected. Heather Campbell lost her job working for a food bank over the summer because of federal funds being cut. Her husband serves as an officer in the Air Force. But now he's facing the prospect of missing his next paycheck because of the government shutdown. The lawmakers in Washington don't step in. Campbell's husband won't get paid on Wednesday because the couple lack the savings to cover all their expenses. They expect to survive on credit cards to pay the mortgage and feed their 3 children, racking up debt as the political stalemate drags on. We've had reports of TSA agents not showing up for work. They're already overworked and underpaid. Now they get no money. On top of that, you have a president who proclaims from a seat of alleged power that they're not owed back pay for being furloughed, forced to come to work without payment. Lawmakers in Washington don't step in. Campbell's husband won't get paid on Wednesday because the couple lacks the savings to cover all their bills. Now, they expect to survive on the credit cards, etc. Well, you're asking us to put our lives on the line for people. You're asking us to put our lives on the line for the people we love, to put their lives on the line, said Campbell, and you're not even going to give us our paycheck. What? There is a lot of broken trust there, end quote. Support is available for military families through nonprofits and charities who are keeping this thing going. Trying to, for example, some financial institutions are offering 0 interest loans, while each military branch has a relief organization, but Campbell said she and her husband in Alabama can't apply for a payday loan because they're refinancing their house. It disqualifies them. They lack a substantial emergency fund because they were paying off student loans and moved several times in the last few years to military posts. So they spent their money paying back student loans and moving from place to place. It was often challenging to her to find steady work and childcare. You got canceled school events now. So canceled school events, growing lines in military food pantries, accumulating fears tied to missed paychecks, and the potential need for loans to stay afloat. U.S. military families are already feeling the impact of the government shutdown that is stretching into their second week and are preparing for worse days ahead. In the last week, military children have already seen after-school programs and activities canceled in mass due to the slowing of federal funds to military schools, disrupting any sense of relative normalcy those families depend on. Two of the sources told CNN. Some military families have preemptively flocked to their local food pantries to stock up on groceries and supplies in case there is a drawn-out shutdown that could mean they go an extended period without an income, one of the sources said. The second military spouse told CNN there were nearly 100 people at their local food pantry on the base where the spouse's family is stationed. This week, a notable uptick compared to the normal usage, while the food pantries have reported similar increases. One factor that contributes to tight finances for military families is the disproportionate number that are single-income households, with active duty service member spouse unemployment consistently high, over 20% in 2024. On top of all of this, you have a very heartless administration. I feel for these families. I feel for the children that have to suffer because of adverse policy and the politics of play.
How are people 50 and older showing up?
All right, Professor, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's such an important point that you just made that this is our money, our taxpayer money that's being invested to support almost completely private corporations and oligarchs, right? And our taxpayer money funding, how embarrassing and shameful, has been directly funding an ongoing genocide including a continuation of the military-industrial complex via big tech companies, which is, what I study. I study technology and society issues as a social scientist at UCLA. The president this time, Trump 2.0, surrounded himself with absolute enablers and complete yes men and yes women. I mean, look at Pam Bondi's embarrassing, mean-spirited ways of responding to some of the questions that that the senators asked her, including a couple of Republican senators. We are seeing very clearly something that the clear fault lines here is that the vast majority of American people, middle and working class, are feeling incredibly anxious about their economic lives and their economic futures. And Trump actually acknowledged people's anger and scapegoated immigrants in kind of a mean-spirited, hateful, and highly inaccurate way, when actually the robbery is being done through our taxpayer money with these big corporations and the wealthiest of the wealthy. Hence, look at the so-called Big Beautiful Bill. So it is interesting to see whoever can run as a legitimate economic populist who actually supports and cares for working people, like Senator Sanders did, like others, like our beloved colleague Dr. Cornel West cares about, they actually have a chance. I mean, look at Marjorie Taylor Greene saying that healthcare subsidies, healthcare costs are going to be too high related to this. She's breaking in a way with this because she recognizes the economic elephant in the room. And so everyone can do blame games and so on, but the reality is Mike Johnson is an obstructionist and a yes man. Look what he's doing with the Epstein files, not deciding to name Adelita Grijalva, the new member of Congress. He won't swear her in because that will mean that the Epstein files will have enough votes to be released.
Yep.
So think about what's actually going on and who is actually maintaining power and keeping the rest of us in the dark and feeling anxious and vulnerable and maybe making us feel like we're going crazy sometimes.
Yeah, when the truth is we're the same ones.
What if your doctor was just a single message?
Has been punished after reporting that black players were called racial slurs during the game. Now, a youth football team has been forced to suspend part of its season after reporting that a rival football team, you have to understand the context, racially harassed some of its black players during a game. According to WPMT News, racial slurs and other derogatory statements were made at a game last month between Seven Sorrows Eagles and Boiling Springs Bubblers, right? Members of the Seven Sorrows Eagles were reportedly targeted by their opponent. Quote, during our game, the derogatory words were being said to specific players of color, end quote, said the Eagles head coach, Mr. Percy Maple. The mother of one Eagles player said her son saw a Bubblers player push one of his teammates to the ground, then make a racist remark or racist remarks. Quote, they said, stay down, black boy, don't get up, Mikey, end quote, Brittany Smith recalled. Quote, that's just disgusting to me, end quote. Eagles parents confronted the Bubblers coach, but the exchange ended with their removal from the field by security. They subsequently made complaints to the Capital Football Association. It's called the CFA, Youth Football League. It's a complaint. They oversee both teams. But instead of penalizing the Bubblers team for their conduct on the field, league officials decided to punish the victims or the Eagles. Maple says the team was ordered to suspend 2 games with no fans. When the team challenged the decision, the league decided to extend the penalty to a 3-game suspension for players at all levels, meaning more than 220 kids who play and cheer across various age levels had to forfeit their games for the rest of the season. Maple and his assistant coach were also banned from the league for the rest of the season. That already seems heavy-handed, right? That seems extreme, sounds like retaliation, obviously. We're talking about a youth-oriented sport where the main agenda of competition is development of self. That's the real competition. You're in competition with yourself to become a team player, to understand what it's like to make sacrifice in the practice, et cetera, et cetera. It's not about winning a damn game. It's about developing as a moral person, young person, character, we call it. Now, the league's board also claims that one Eagles player directed, quote, threats toward the organization as he left the stadium in the presence of school district leadership, end quote. That player was kicked off the team and barred from the league. Everyone was upset. Everyone was like, we're not sure why we're getting punished, Smith said. Quote, now I have to tell my son that his season's over, end quote. The CFA can take our seats, but they cannot take our spirits, she said. Quote, we're not letting them break us, end quote. The Eagles are now requesting other teams to take part in the scrimmage games in the hopes of giving their players a chance to play on the field. That is correct. That is the spirit of not simply survival, but that is the spirit of thriving. That is the spirit of thriving. First of all, you don't want to be in that racist ass league anyway. That's my opinion.
Right.
So let's just call it what it is. Now, the CFA, obviously, they're making this decision. It seems heavy-handed. Some people have to back the play that's part of the board. You may not want your children to be part of such an organization that will make a decision. I know I wouldn't want my child to be part of that. So you are in the position you should be in, and that is called informed. You are informed. Now, here's a novel idea. In addition to having your scrimmage games, how about you create a league that's not racist? One that challenges the dogma and doctrine of the CFA. Racism so extreme that some football players were coming to their coaches in tears, crying. Last year, we reported David Douglas' football team has competed in 3 away games against rival high schools in Oregon so far this season. Each game has brought a deplorable barrage of racial hate speech and behavior, according to Frazier. He says his black players have been subjected to monkey sounds, chants of the N-word, and being called King Kong, among other slurs. And if you recall, we're not simply talking about coming from other student or youth players or from adults who are in the stand. So here we are. It's very sad. You see, this is bullying. This is called bullying. And if there's an attorney listening, you happen to have a license in that jurisdiction, may I say to you that bullying, verbal bullying, and adults who have a duty to protect, meaning they're in a position of authority as it relates to youth safety. They also have a duty to protect youth from verbal insults that are contextualized as bullying. If they do not provide said protection, proper complaints have been logged, there could be a massive lawsuit. You have 220. You definitely have enough for a class action here. If you happen to be an attorney licensed in that jurisdiction, I encourage you to take a look at this case. All right, Professor, thoughts here?
Yeah, it's teams and clubs and all these things are supposed to be the way in which we Americans, especially young Americans, find community. We learn that we can be a team even if we're members of the team are different from one another, right? It's like any critical, as you said, it's not just about sports or developing athletic skills. It's actually about developing your ability to be in community, to build those bonds that are so important in adolescence. But I just think a lot of younger people in this country, just several different things. First of all, most younger people in this country, for most of their lives, if they're under 18, have grown up with Trump as the most important political figure in this country. Think about how difficult that must be to have the most powerful person in your country, let alone the world, probably be so negative and mean-spirited. So that doesn't set the best of examples, right? Second, many people have lived through COVID and they just are quickly giving in. So it's, we're really at a time now where it's become so easy to be mean-spirited. Social media as well, right? How many of our viewers or listeners have ever had a civil conversation or dialogue or debate on social media? It's very rare, right?
Yep.
So the thing is, when one wants to create community, you have to set certain rules and norms for that community, right? So if it's of course kids can be discriminatory, and they might have been even before, or they have been even before the advent of social media and COVID and Trump. But, in the past, and in most cases, I hope today and into the future, when one kid does that to another, there are penalties, there's repercussions for those actions, right? But now, just think about this, right? We have a president who claimed to be there for Black and brown people, for Hispanic people, for Black men, in particular Black men, right? That was like almost a slip. We're claiming for Black people. But in reality, on every single step this administration has taken, including expunging top military generals who are African American, the most esteemed of the esteemed, and at least in a very traditional nationalist way, has been about excluding those groups. So kids are learning those lessons, and the only way we can change things is for our leaders, people like, for example, coaches in football leagues and other leagues, to show that things can be very different.
shop before that. Stay out of my shop. Okay. I'm going to start again with electric vehicles saving us money.
Congresswoman, why I never would have imagined. Former Congresswoman Katie Porter, who's now running for California governor. There's a newly released video of the former Congresswoman screaming at a staff member. Video exchange exclusively obtained by Politico. Somebody has a friend there. On Wednesday, shows an online conversation between Porter and then Energy Secretary Jennifer Granholm in July 2021. Several minutes in Porter's staffer interjected to correct something the Democratic representative has said about electric vehicles. Porter then reprimanded the employee for the correction, who had also previously appeared periodically in the background during the recording. The staffer has declined to comment as of yet. Porter issued a statement on Wednesday saying she's striving to do better by her staff. Quote, "It's no secret I hold myself and my staff to a high standard." And that was especially true as a member of Congress. Porter told Politico in the statement, quote, "I have sought to be more intentional in showing gratitude to my staff for their important work." Ma'am, I've been in broadcast media for, 15 years? I have never in my life spoken to somebody in that way. Ever. Know what I think to do. You are in a position or seeking a position of very high public trust, and you haven't figured out how to treat people with respect. Here's what I believe now. I believe this in here, okay? If you don't treat the people who are close to you with decency and respect, I don't imagine that you could figure out a way to treat the people you have never met with decency and respect. You take that to the bank. All right, Professor, thoughts here.
I mean, a bunch of things. So first of all, I have worked with a number of staffers for congressional representatives, senators. I am currently even working with a number of state senators here in California, where I'm based, to try to write and push a bill through that can regulate artificial intelligence so it better supports laborers, workers, citizens, and our environment. We're working hard on it. And I'm going to tell you something. I think you know this, Dr. Ritchie. Those people get paid next to nothing.
Yep.
And that's actually true for congressional staffers as well. Like I've, worked with some of Bernie Sanders staffers before. They're not in it for the money.
Right.
They're in it. I mean, in many cases, they're in it because they really believe in the potential of trying to support our democracy, at least in some cases. So, for Representative Porter, I know she's vying for a Senate seat here in our state. To kind of flip out like that on her staffer, I know it was like hot mic, so to speak, or hot video camera, so to speak. She didn't want that to get out. That's not a great sign of her ability to be a leader, as you just said. For her to be able to, because remember, if she were to be elected as senator, she would need to lead the way with her staffers and try to actually enact some meaningful changes, which we desperately need here in our state of California and around this country. I'd heard total hearsay that the situation was somewhat similar back in 2020 with Kamala Harris and her staffers and their relation. And that was reported by some of the media, which is partly why Kamala Harris didn't even contest in the Iowa caucus.